little bit on the shorter side here, so give me 1 second. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Shabbat Shalom. Eile hadvarim asher diber Moshe el B'nai Yisrael. These are the words which Moshe spoke to all of Israel. As our Parsha opens, Moshe addresses the entire people. As his final act of leadership, he begins to look backward and review the 40-year history he has been on with B'nai Yisrael. 19th century Danish philosopher and theologian Søren Kierkegaard wrote, "Life is lived forward but understood backwards." So before I continue on about Moshe's journey, I'd like you to journey back with me to a few weeks ago. On my first Shabbat at Anshai, Farzan asked me to deliver a Dvar Torah in August. I was honored and looking forward to it. I checked my calendar and agreed to it. Until last year, the date of August 10th did not have any particular meaning to me. So it's not a date that triggers anything in my head, but it did seem oddly familiar to me. Then it hit me, and I realized that last year, August 10th, was the day that my dad passed away. While it may sound unusual to you that I did not immediately associate August 10th with my dad's death, it is because all year I had the date of the 23rd of Av in my head. The 23rd of Av would be his first Yortzeit, which falls in a couple of weeks. The 23rd of Av would be a full year. The 23rd of Av, not August 10th, was the date I associated with my dad's passing. Growing up, my parents always referred to their parents' death by the date of their Yortzeit, the Hebrew date, and it never occurred to me to even ask the English date. The Jewish calendar has always been the guiding structure of my life. Just as Moshe taught B'nai Yisrael how to live their lives following the Jewish year, celebrating the holidays, marking certain dates, this is what my parents taught me as well. I was conflicted, and I didn't know whether or not I should speak today. On one hand, I wanted to be up here sharing words of Torah with you. On the other hand, I wasn't so sure if I would be able to make it through the speech. In the past, when I had decisions to make that I needed help with, I turned to my parents. I would call my mom, who used to tell me to speak to my dad. But I now live in a new reality. I did call my mom. She told me I should do whatever I felt was right, but that my dad would have suggested that I do it. So here I am today sharing these words of Torah with you in memory of my dad, Rabbi Kornsgold, Moshe Hillel ben Yehoshua v'Hinda Miriam. Now let's turn ourselves back to Moshe Rabbeinu. Knowing he was going to die soon, Moses needed to decide what his final message would be to the children of Israel, which they would take with them as they embarked on the next journey of their lives. In Parshat Devarim, Moses begins his final monologue 5 weeks before his death. He begins his repetition of the Torah by reviewing the events that occurred and the laws that were given in the course of their 40-year journey from Egypt to Sinai to the Promised Land, rebuking the people for their failings and iniquities, and enjoining them to keep the Torah and observe its commandments in the land that God is giving them as an eternal heritage into which they shall cross after his death. Moshe mentions a number of places the people camped at along the way. Now, when we look at the beginning of the Parsha, it's hard to understand what it is Moshe wants from the nation. What, if anything, is the relationship between these places and B'nai Yisrael? Rashi, an 11th century commentator, says that Moshe is listing all the places where B'nai Yisrael had sinned in the past, and there were a lot of them, for a specific reason. You might ask yourself, why didn't Moshe just admonish them outright, telling them what they did was wrong instead of hinting at it by reciting the number of places? It is because Moshe wanted to get the message across to B'nai Yisrael, but in a subtle way, so as to not cause them any embarrassment in the process. After all, the people knew only too well what had happened, the sins they had committed, and at the places Moshe mentioned. They didn't have to be hit over the head with it. A hint was enough. From the way Moshe spoke, we can learn an important lesson when it comes to dealing with people. Nobody is perfect, and we all make mistakes. There's no need to bluntly confront someone with their mistakes. This is the reason Moshe only alluded to the sins with the people. This is the way to successfully help others learn from their mistakes and not make it worse from them. Good leaders teach us through example. Through his speech, Moshe continued to teach B'nai Yisrael, He was a dugma, an example to the people how to act even after he was gone. When God made the decision that Moshe would not be accompanying B'nai Yisrael into the land, I wonder if God considered how it would affect them. After all, Moses had been with them since the beginning. They endured a lot together. They had life-changing experiences together. There were many good days as well as many bad days. Moses was the parent to the people he was leading. A parent is supposed to be a constant in our lives until they are not, until the illusion of security dies with them. I keep thinking about the Israelites and how difficult it must have been for them when their trusted leader could no longer be with them on the next part of their journey, crossing over the Jordan. I imagine they felt a little lost. Even though they knew Joshua would be leading them, they had lost a piece of who they were. No one loves you the way a parent does, so you never quite recover from that loss. And grief has a way of transcending time, casting you into the wilderness, and demanding that you find a way to move through an unforgiving landscape. There's no way to fulfill the void that suspends you between what was and what can never be restored. Death is final, and that is a really difficult thing to accept. Did God assume the people would get over their grief? Did God finally trust the people enough, knowing that this would not send them into a tailspin, and they would be able to continue forward and settle into the land which they had dreamed about for decades? Nothing prepares us for losing a leader, for letting go of someone we trust and believe in. Nothing except for a great leader. Well, so many things in life are about letting go. I think the transition from Avelut, the mourning period which just ended for me a week ago, is in part about figuring out how to hold on. When B'nai Yisrael was about to enter the Promised Land, Moses wanted to make sure they would not rebel and revert backwards as a reaction to losing him. He knew he had reached the end of his life and the end of his leadership, so he stated without bitterness that he will not cross over the Jordan. He goes on to assure the Israelites, along with his successor Joshua, that he will cross over with them. He closes his brief address in front of B'nai Yisrael with the words, Chazak ve'ematz, be strong and of good courage, assuring the Israelites that God will not forsake them. Moses is occupied not with his own death or his feelings of loss, but with his concern for the people, who will soon face the unknown without him. Their leader prepared them well, and they did not rebel. Instead, they decided to hold on. They were going to hold on to the laws of the Torah, which Moses just repeated to them. They were going to hold on to the 10 Commandments to help them understand how to live amongst others. They would remember the lessons they learned during and after times of war and struggle. After all, their journey to the Promised Land was not an easy one. They would hold on to the belief in one God, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, which appears in next week's Parsha. They would hold on to their history, to their relationship, to their commitment to others, to their commitment to God, and to themselves. Their leader may be gone, but all the things that Moses accomplished during his lifetime did not have to die with them. Moses' legacy still endures. My dad was a leader not just in my family, but in many other communities. He served as shul president for 25 years, so 2 years here is nothing. Planned many shul dinners and banquets. He served as a mediator in the Jewish community and was very active in the Holocaust Survivors Association. In my own life, I've been holding on tight to every picture I find of him. Excuse me. I'm holding on to all the advice my dad gave me over the years. I'm holding on to the ethics and values both he and my mom taught us through example. I hold on to his zest for life. I hold on to the fierce love he had for his family. I hold on to his absolute love for dogs. I hold on to all the Yiddish phrases I learned listening to him and my mom speak their secret language. I hold on to his deep love of Judaism, which he transmitted along with my mom over to his grandchildren and great-grandchildren. My dad loved going to shul, davening, celebrating Shabbat and the holidays, chanting Haftorah, and he loved wearing a suit and tie. He was like the mayor of the synagogue, greeting others, wishing them a good Shabbos, extending Yasher Koach to anyone after they had an honor. I don't know if anybody loved working the room quite like my dad. I know he would have loved to visit here and have the chance to get to know all of you. He would have loved the Hamish feeling in this community and how welcoming you have been to my family. So although at times, many times, it's hard to go on without him, just as the Jewish people continued on when Moses passed away and created a new life for themselves, I too continue to write the next chapter of my life here with you. Shabbat Shalom.